And thanks, Scott Shannon, and welcome aboard. Glad you're with us. 1 week from today, it will be Election Day in America. Are you ready? Because we got a lot of tight races that are emerging, developing, and I'm not going to venture a guess, but there's certainly a chance of that big wave election that people are predicting. I'm not in that business. It could be a tsunami. I don't know. I hope so, but it's really going to depend on you and having the urgency of the moment to get out there and to vote and to do your part and to participate and to stop the drastic, turn that this country has taken in the last 21 months. It's been awful for everybody. Got some fascinating news about races all around the country. One big piece of news is out of the, liberal state of New York, where Trafalgar has now come up with a new poll showing that Lee Zeldin is leading Governor Kathy Hochul by 48.4% to 47.6%, with a 4%, margin of error. 4% of likely voters are still undecided. Usually undecided voters will go for the challenger, not for the incumbent. We see now groups that had never supported Republican candidates in New York, like the Latino Grocers Association, raising money for Lee Zeldin. Their entire history is that of voting Democrat. And some really interesting things that are developing too. Look, there's one thing, there's facts, there's speculation, but there's also simple, basic, fundamental truth. And this all got started when Kathy Hochul started making these comments. It was during the debate with Lee Zeldin, and she says to Lee Zeldin, like, why are you so obsessed with this crime thing? And then she went out there and she made a statement that, everybody's lying about crime, that it's not true, that there are data deniers out there. There are people that are master manipulators out there, insisting that Americans' fear on rising crime is manufactured by these master manipulators and this, conspiracy ahead of election. There's no conspiracy. If she would just turn on her local news, she would see that she's just outright lying, because statistics don't lie. New York City, I can give you the numbers. Somebody tell Governor Hochul that, data denier Sean Hannity said that she needs to learn how to read, because it's that simple. If you go from murders in 2019 to today, it's up a whopping 32%. And that's on top of a record year last year. Are you kidding me? Robberies up 32%, felony assault up 24%, burglaries up 49%, grand larceny up 19.6%, auto theft up a whopping 148%. The only data denier in this race for New York is Kathy Hochul. I mean, it's bizarre. I mean, you see now that Lee Zeldin's race, this race has now gotten a lot of national attention. Governor DeSantis was in campaigning for Lee Zeldin over the weekend. They had a massive crowd. Governor Glenn Youngkin was out with Lee Zeldin yesterday. There are now congressional races in the state of New York that were leaning Democrat that are now either toss-up or leaning Republican. So that's all good news, what's happening in the state of New York. And it's not just Hochul that's making this idiotic comment. You got the governor of New Jersey, I'll play it later in the show, accusing the GOP of playing the crime card. What part of them not understanding? They're the party of defund, dismantle, and no bail laws. And now their chickens, quote, have come home to roost. And as a result of their idiocy, crime is at a record high. And if you look at the top 15 cities in America, 11 run by liberal Democrats for decades, they hold the record. These policies are failing and failing spectacularly. Joyless Behar just making it up, just like Phil Murphy, just like Kathy Hochul. Crime is going down under Biden. No, it's not going down under Biden. These no bail laws, this dismantle the police, has had a profound effect on law and order and safety and security. And what Democrats really aren't liking is the fact that it's working against them. One of many issues that is working against them. We need more time to fix the economy. We need more new Green Deal-ism. We're going to have more inflation instead of a 40-year high of inflation. We're going to build it to an 80-year high of inflation. And I keep saying this is now simple, basic, fundamental stuff here. Joe Biden inherited inflation at 1.4%, the gross domestic product. Now it's 8.5%. It has been that way for 9 months. They told us it would be transitory, temporary. It was going away. It's already coming.
The Sean Hannity Show, already in progress on WOR.
Robberies up 32% year over year. Grand larcenies up 38%. Car thefts up dramatically. You know, what part of this are they missing? What they don't like is they are now losing. So they are now spinning, just conspiracy theories. Oh, it's really safe out there. There's not a single person in New York that lives there, that walks the streets there, that sees that as reality. But I guess they're just hoping that people will say, oh, okay, it's false. I guess what I was reading and all the news I'm seeing must be not true. All the people being thrown in front of trains, that must not be happening either. What's amazing about it's not just, Lee Zeldin having a chance to win the governorship in the state of New York. That's one race. Now you have congressional districts. We'll talk to a couple of candidates later. Out in the state of Washington, we now have a statistical dead heat. I mean, Tiffany Smiley just smoked Patty Murray in a debate out in Washington and is now dead even at 46-46. Later on, Tiffany Smiley will give us an update on her race and what's going on out there. Tudor Dixon and a direct tie with Gretchen Whitmer out in Michigan. That is a winnable race. Granted, definitely outside the margins in terms of, all right, normally you wouldn't think Republicans would be playing well, but it's possible. I'm not one of these Pollyannish people that are going to tell you that it's going to be this massive red wave. I'm telling you that it's going to be hard. I'm telling you that, all these Senate races in particular, we are in the game. And for Republicans to be in the game, if Herschel Walker can win in Virginia, can win in Georgia, not easy. If we can have Ted Budd win in North Carolina, not an easy race. If Oz can win in Pennsylvania's always a hard race. How anybody can vote for this idiot Fetterman is beyond any imagination I have. And the amount of money in these final days after that disaster of a debate that Democrats are throwing into Pennsylvania is obscene. Tens and tens of millions of dollars desperately trying to, prop up Fetterman. No restrictions on abortion, moratorium on fracking. That'll ruin the entire economy of Pennsylvania. A guy that wants to release more convicted murderers than anybody that ever ran for the Senate in history. Taxpayer-funded safe heroin injection site, sanctuary state of Pennsylvania. He wants that. Never mind the shotgun incident and everything else that he supported over the years. It's insanity. But that's in play. Then Ron Johnson. It's never that easy for a Republican in the state of Wisconsin. I think he'll win. I can't say for sure he's going to win. I think Herschel's going to win. I think he'll pull it out. I think Oz will pull it out. I don't think it's going to be easy. I think these races are all going to be tight, all going to be close. J.D. Vance is up by 5, but I'd rather he be up by 10 right now. We now have General Bolduc in New Hampshire. His only problem, he's got a libertarian in that race. That is making his job more difficult. Eric Schmidt is up a comfortable 9 points in Missouri. Not too worried about that race. We're going to have a tough race in Nevada. You can never trust the vote counting out in Nevada, in my view, just like Milwaukee or Philly or some of the other areas of the country, Fulton or DeKalb County. I always have my suspicions. Can't say for sure, but they're always there. And then, of course, Blake Masters. We do have a big development out in the great state of Arizona, where in a move that, is phenomenal. I got to give a lot of credit, but this can really help Blake Masters, the libertarian candidate running for the Senate in Arizona, who was polling at about 4 points, has now decided to back off the race. He's dropped out and he's endorsed Blake Masters. The guy's name is Mark Victor. Mark Victor, I don't know who you are. I think that was very gracious of you to do. I have libertarian friends. I don't mind libertarians getting elected. You weren't going to win this race. I hope you win another race down the road. But I think this push to ensure that Chuck Schumer Jr., Mark Kelly, doesn't get elected is a very, very important point. Latest Insider Advantage poll last Wednesday showed Victor with 6% of the vote, while Kelly led Masters 45-43, which means I'm assuming most of the libertarian vote goes to Blake Masters. That means this race is now more winnable. The Oregon governor's race, we now have the Republican leading out there. I mean, that's another incredible race to keep our eye on. And we're watching all of this closely. The Department of Justice took a rare step in weighing in on a court case involving armed Arizona groups monitoring ballot boxes, warning vigilantes they will likely be arrested. And the Department of Justice said in a court filing on Monday, several Arizona groups monitoring ballot drop boxes can amount to illegal voter intimidation. I don't want anybody being intimidated into not voting, but certainly monitoring what they should have on every lock box is something called a surveillance camera. And the surveillance camera should be accessible to every voter, and that's for the purpose of keeping elections honest. By the way, Fetterman yet again refuses to allow his doctors to talk to the press. You know, it was on fake news CNN. We've heard little from your doctor. We've haven't heard a lot. You're asking voters to trust you on your word that you're in good health without the full story. So in the interest of full transparency for voters, do you think it would help if you let your doctors do a press conference before election night? Fetterman replied that he feels his campaign has been pretty transparent. They haven't been transparent. They took the note of a guy that donated, nearly $2,000 to his campaign. Oh, I think he's healthy. He's fine. I like this guy. The big blow to Fetterman yesterday was his hometown newspaper, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, announced that they're voting for Dr. Oz, saying he's a better bet for Pennsylvania for a variety of reasons, including the fact that he's actually worked his entire life with real life experience. And Fetterman's been nothing but a spoiled trust fund brat his entire life, and is not being transparent about his health and has accomplished next to pretty much nothing during his life. Up in the state of New Hampshire, now this is going to be an interesting race. Later on this week, we're going to have Governor Chris Sununu. He's up by 15 in the governor's race in New Hampshire. And he's now supporting Bolduc. He's voting straight Republican ticket. And the race now, Real Clear Politics, has moved the Bolduc Hassan race from lean Democrat to a toss-up. I mean, that would be a massive pickup for Republicans also. So we're watching that race really closely. And, we have to watch this deceit that's going on in the state of Utah with this guy, Evan McMullen. There's no Democrat running for Senate against Mike Lee. The Democrat is Evan McMullen. And he's claiming that he's not going to caucus with Democrats. No, him and Mitt Romney want to be the Joe Manchin in the Senate and clog up the works for the Republicans. Mike Lee is a real conservative, a real constitutionalist, and Evan Egg McMuffin is a phony. And he's being bought and paid for by the Democrats, and he's going to vote hard left every time. And I believe he's lying. I don't trust him. I don't believe a word he's saying. He is bought and paid for. Look where the money's coming. Follow the money. The money's coming from Act Blue and all the Democratic organizations. He's not getting Republican support. Maybe Liz Cheney. Look, if you own a home, you're looking to save money before the holidays, I've got a question to ask. Have you called our friends at AmericanFinancing.net yet? Because if you haven't, you need to. They may be able to save you, as they've saved other listeners, hundreds and hundreds of dollars every month. And some are even seeing up to $1,000 in monthly savings. Now, what do? They're going to give a look at your unique financial situation, a full financial review, including a debt consolidation review, a mortgage review, and they're going to run the numbers and see if they can save you money monthly and save you money over the course of your mortgage, over the course of your loan. It's that simple. There's no pressure at all, no cost at all, no obligation at all. They're just going to give you a free mortgage, financial, debt consolidation review. Call the experts now. They're waiting for your call. 866-615-9200. 866-615-9200 on the web, AmericanFinancing.net.
American Financing, NMLS 182334, NMLSConsumerAccess.org.
Newt Gingrich here, and I'd like to invite you to listen to my podcast, Newt's World. Most people know me as the former Speaker of the House, but I'm also a historian with a wide range of interests. I enjoy talking with fascinating people across a variety of topics. On Newt's World, we've had some extraordinary guests join us, like former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger.
Ending the war in Vietnam was a necessity in order to help heal the divisions in the country.
John Clifton, the CEO of Gallup.
The world has been winning the war against hunger for 4 decades. In 2014, it switched. We have a serious hunger crisis.
And House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy.
What I've really found the Republican Party to be, it's the party of the people, the working people of America.
I release 3 episodes of Newt's World podcast every week, and I hope you'll find my conversations engaging and informative, and hopefully we'll both learn something new. Listen to Newt's World on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast. Newt Gingrich here, and I'd like to invite you to listen to my podcast, Newt's World. Most people know me as the former Speaker of the House, but I'm also a historian with a wide range of interests. I enjoy talking with fascinating people across a variety of topics. On Newt's World, we've had some extraordinary guests join us, like former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger.
Ending the war in Vietnam was a necessity in order to help heal the divisions in the country.
John Clifton, the CEO of Gallup.
The world has been winning the war against hunger for 4 decades. In 2014, it switched. We have a serious hunger crisis.
And House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy.
What I've really found the Republican Party to be, it's the party of the people, the working people of America.
I release 3 episodes of Newt's World podcast every week, and I hope you'll find my conversations engaging and informative, and hopefully we'll both learn something new. Listen to Newt's World on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast.
America listens to Sean Hannity. And he's on right now.
Democrats so desperate they're back to the Republicans want to take away your Social Security and Medicare lie. It's happening now all over the country. Obama's leading that charge. One interesting note, Larry Sabato had Democratic-leaning pollster urging Joe Biden to stay out of sight. In the final days of the election, Biden will ramp up his campaign trail appearances in Pennsylvania, Florida, New Mexico, California, Maryland to stump for Democratic candidates, but his relatively low profile is part of a concerted strategy designed for an unpopular president in a challenging election year. That's why they have brought in Barack Obama. The one piece of advice I have for everybody is I want every American to be safe. Let me be very clear. And what happened to Paul Pelosi, why they don't have security. We provide, I believe, a private jet for Nancy Pelosi to travel back and forth from Washington for security reasons. You know, you need to protect our elected officials. I've said that repeatedly. Mean it, not saying it. Wish him the best. But crime is surging all over the country. You know, for years we've been scrolling the names that you've never heard of people shot and killed in Chicago and other cities. The names of cops that have been shot and killed. You never hear of them. You know, the riots in the summer of 2020. Democrats seem to only want to talk about violence, crime, attacks like this only if it advances their political agenda. January 6th, Paul Pelosi, but not the riots in the summer of 2020 or an average weekend in Chicago.
Sean Hannity is on the radio.
25 to the top of the hour. So these are fun races to watch. You know, can Lee Zeldin pull off a massive upset in New York? He's now up leading in the polls in New York for the gubernatorial race. Can Tiffany Smiley defeat Patty Murray out in the state of Washington? Can Republicans win the Senate in Georgia? Can they win it in North Carolina? Can they win it in New Hampshire? Can they win it in Pennsylvania? Can they win it in Ohio and Wisconsin and Missouri and Nevada and Arizona as well? I mean, maybe even Colorado. Who knows? But the only way it's going to happen is if you vote. The polls are interesting. They're fun to look at. So while Larry Sabato is urging Biden to stay out of sight, if you look at the states they're sending him to, they're not sending them to any place where he can really do damage, except probably Pennsylvania. He's not going to help Charlie Crist down in Florida. He's not going to, he might hurt in New Mexico. That's a possibility. Not going to do any damage in California or Maryland. That's where he's headed. And they're sending Obama to Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, and all the places that actually matter. Very angry Barack Obama. and desperate too, by lying. There's not a single Republican, not one, that has even mentioned Social Security or Medicare or cutting or eliminating in any way, shape, manner, or form. It's the third rail in American politics. Now they're all headed for insolvency. Do I think over time that the day of reckoning is going to come? Yeah, probably. But it's not happening now. And there's no Republican that's talking about it. My guess is in the end, depending on what your age happens to be, and they'll keep raising the age in which you can get Social Security, to basically the day before you die. They'll means test it at some point. Even though it's your money, they'll legalize stealing it. They'll figure out some way. But to be as desperate as to say Republicans, they're going to steal your Social Security and Medicare, and they're also a bunch of racists. And then to deny that crime is even happening. No, this defund, dismantle, and no bail laws are really working. And we have actual real statistics that it's not working, and that it has dramatically increased the murder rate, increased violent crime, increased thefts, increased carjackings, and increased pretty much every other crime that's out there. So they're in a state of denial about that. They're desperate to just lie. Deep down, what this tells me is they know fundamentally that these are the issues that are resonating with people. Everybody knows, anybody that shops any place, anywhere, anytime, anybody that fills up their gas tank knows what the truth and the reality is. It doesn't matter what some dopey, dumb politician or some slick political ad is saying. You're paying a hell of a lot more for a gallon of gasoline than you were paying Donald Trump. And those gas prices are now going higher. And we're in a very dangerous situation as it relates to diesel fuel, which I'll get to in a second. So when they say that the crime is down, when they say, oh no, inflation is transitory and things are getting better, you go shopping and you look at your grocery bill and it's different. And unfortunately, that means restaurants have to raise the costs of the items they sell. A lot of people don't know it's a very low margin business being in the restaurant business. I know because I worked in it for 10 years of my life. That most restaurants don't really make their money off of the food. They're making their money off of the booze. If they charge $5, $10 a drink, by the way, in New York, it's like $25. It's insane. What do they call them? Mixologists? It's called bartending.
They are mixologists.
What is it?
It is a mixologist. They're not just bartenders. I have to say, there are some pretty good cocktails. They do deserve that name.
No, they do. I actually found an after-dinner drink that I like. Want to know what it is?
I do.
An espresso martini.
That's my drink. I told you about that drink.
I don't remember you ever telling me about that.
That's because you were drunk when I gave it to you. That's why.
Oh, that's a lie. Stop. First of all, you've never seen me drunk in my life.
We've worked together almost 20 years. I think I've seen you drunk at least once.
I don't think so.
I think so.
You might. Because I don't get drunk. I don't do that. It's not my thing.
What do you get?
Honestly, my tolerance now is, I used to kid around and say half a Heineken Hannity, but it's really...
It's actually better now because you switched to Tito's. When you go to hard liquor, you have to beef it up a bit.
You gotta be. By the way, you're like the biggest lightweight in the world anyway.
I am now. I used to be able to handle my own.
And you're like, woo,
No, that's not true. It's like 1.5.
Okay. You and Sweet Baby James, he'll take one little bottle of rum or bourbon and mix it with 5 Cokes and think that he had a drink. Anyway, so on top of lying about crime, so now Joe Biden, he's not blaming his idiotic energy policies or his economic policies for what's happening. No, now he's lashing out against the energy companies, and he's claiming and feigning outrage that, well, these greedy energy companies are paying huge dividends to their shareholders. Stop right there. That's their job. Their job is to make as big a profit as they possibly can. But putting that aside, but what he's not factoring is his administration, his policies are the very policies that have pushed all of these energy companies not into a position where they cannot invest or reinvest their profits into new drilling permits because he nixed them, or new pipelines because he's not allowing them, or the rules that he has issued that the companies must assume that oil and gas supplies will plummet in the value of Green New Deal-ism and this alternative energy or renewable energy independence that we don't have the technology for. So you can yell and scream and bash the oil companies all they want. All of this is a tacit admission that they understand their economic policies, which gave us a 40-year high of inflation, their energy policies, which have now doubled the cost of a gallon of gasoline. And after the election, it's all going higher because he's already raided and compromised our national security, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Watch what happens. It's not going to be good. There won't be any tapping these strategic petroleum reserves after the election. This was an election ploy to try to artificially reduce gas prices, to say, see, our policies of bringing down gas prices. No, because Donald Trump filled it up and you've now depleted them. The lowest level in 50 years. So they can call, they can attack everybody themselves, but it's an admission their policies are failing. And most Americans have noticed the wide open border situation, and they know that it was caused by Joe Biden. Every American, they're not blaming Republicans for defund, dismantle, no bail laws. They're blaming the Democrats, rightly so. And, as in terms of woke education and transgenderism and gender identity education and CRT, those are not Republican policies either. That's the Democratic agenda. That's their radicalism on display. All of these issues combined, they recognize are hurting them, but they're not willing to change. And I would imagine no matter how bad next Tuesday might end up being for them, and I'm not guaranteeing it, I'm urging you to be cautious for those people that are overly optimistic. Assume that Republicans are behind and that your vote is going to make the difference. I can't convey that urgency to you enough. Leaked documents show the DHS, the FBI, social media platforms work together to stop debate on COVID, Hunter's laptop, and election integrity. Gee, isn't that great? Anyway, explosive reporting from The Intercept revealing that the Biden administration's Disinformation Governance Board lives on in other ways. You have emails and texts that show that these three groups, the FBI, the DHS, collaborating with top social media companies to censor free speech. The DHS plans to target inaccurate information on the origins of the COVID pandemic. Okay, we already know about the origins. They lied, and we were lied to repeatedly, and pretty much scientifically everything they told us was dead wrong. I will never, ever, ever, as long as I live, listen to the NIH, the CDC, or any government official or government hack like Anthony Fauci ever again in my life. Ever. The one thing they could have done that would have worked is focus on therapeutics, monoclonal antibodies, anybody? And they've never done it. Anyway, meanwhile, by the way, there is talk that Blumenthal is in trouble in New Hampshire. We had that candidate on. She was very good, but I'm not sure I believe that. What's that, Linda? Yeah, I forgot her name. I don't remember. Here's a scary thought. Truck drivers are now seeing it. They're now working for peanuts because of surging fuel prices. How much can you charge for a bag of potato chips? Last year it was $5. Now it's $6. A dozen eggs, $1.83 is now $2.90. 2-liter bottle of soda, $1.78 now, almost double also. And that's pretty much every item. Anyway, the fuel supplier called Mansfield Energy is now taking steps to prepare for a diesel shortage on the east coast of the U.S., issuing an advisory to businesses that rely on diesel fuel to plan rather than, quote, panic. Last week, they raised a red flag on the upcoming diesel fuel shortage in the southeastern region of the U.S., speculating it could be from poor pipeline shipping economies and a historically low supply of reserves. On a normal day, the East Coast markets have 50 million barrels in storage. Right now, we're at less than 20. That's scary. A tight diesel supply will force prices to go up, which will eventually make it too expensive for some people. The company said in a press release, high prices will bring demand back down enough that it balances with limited supply. What are truck drivers supposed to do? If trucking companies can't make money, they're not going to send their trucks out. They're not going to put the wear and tear on their trucks if they're making 5 cents for every run that they make. They're not going to do it. Anyway, so that is a big warning that businesses need to prepare for shortages. If this election were held in February of this year, after the heating home price shock that's coming, with predictions now of a minimum of 30% increase in terms of heating your home, whether you heat it by natural gas or you heat it with oil. If the election would take place then, this would be a wipeout of all wipeouts. Because this is all coming, they're all telling us, and nobody's talking about it. I am telling you to prepare yourself. We're going to have on, I had a good conversation with Governor Sununu in New Hampshire the other day, and I've talked to Senate candidate Bolduc about this. And the Epic Times had an article about this. I told you about it last week. They expect the New England power grid, in all likelihood, is going to have blackouts in the middle of this winter because they don't have the natural gas necessary. They have about 1/10 of what's needed to even keep the grid up. That's how dangerous this now will be. We've already been reading about Western Europe and Putin turning off the spigot and what that's going to mean for home heating prices in Western Europe, where people will pay 30, 40, maybe more % of their annual income just to heat their homes at a much lower level of comfort than they're used to. That's how scary it is. And now oil CEOs, according to CNBC, politicians, governments around the world bracing for the potential civil unrest as many countries grapple with the mounting energy costs and rising inflation. You know what we could do if we were a smart country right now? We would have a meeting at the White House and bring in every energy producer we have and give them carte blanche. Tell them we're going to give you a 10-year unbreakable lease to go for it and produce all the natural gas, all the energy you can as quickly as you can. And then our goal would be to dominate and supply all of Western Europe and other parts of the world with the hundreds and hundreds of years worth of supply of natural gas, oil, and coal that we have. We probably at some point would not only pay down our debt, but eliminate all income taxes in this country. We'd be that rich. We'd be an oil-rich nation, but don't expect that to happen. By the way, our friend Whoopi Goldberg blaming Fox News for the political violence in the wake of Pelosi's attack. I feel sorry for Paul Pelosi. I feel sorry for any victim of crime. This guy got hit with a hammer. Keep asking liberals all the time, what are you going to do if somebody breaks in your house? But more importantly, this is happening every day in cities all over the country. Why don't liberals show concern at the weekend violence? Look at the violence on Halloween in Chicago last night. Kids 5 years old, and 12 years old? Was that the ages yesterday? I think about 10, 11, 12 people shot in one incident alone in Chicago. It was insane. It's happening
in Kansas and Chicago. And it's Halloween. It's supposed to be something fun for the kids. You got Lightfoot out there making rap videos and people are dying in the street.
It's unbelievable. But, I mean this sincerely. I don't want anybody getting hit with a hammer by this lunatic. Oh, he's a conservative. He's not a conservative. He's a lunatic. Just like the Bernie Sanders lover, Rachel Maddow lover that shot Steve Scalise is a lunatic.
But where is the video footage? Doesn't matter what their politics are. But this is that's what liberals do. They do it all the time. I even said so at the time. Watch, the next time that there's a person that says that they are conservative and they're responsible for violence, they're going to blame the Republican that they support. They're going to blame conservatism or MAGA Republicans. I don't support violence. I don't. But you know what? Paul Pelosi deserves to be protected and safe and secure, and so does every other American. And we're not providing basic security for most Americans now because of defund, dismantle, no bail laws. 800-941-SEAN is our number. All right, Tiffany Smiley, wow, tied dead even with Patty Murray in Washington. That's phenomenal. We also have some big news in New York with Lee Zeldin leading, Kelly Chewbacca. But I want to tell you how to save money with Pure Talk. Look, if you're still with AT&T, T-Mobile, or any of these other big carriers, you're wasting your time and money. You'll get the exact same cell towers, the same 5G network. You'll have the same number of coverage bars on your phone. You keep your phone number.
They have more plans like unlimited talk and text and 6 gigs of data, only $30 a month. Average family saving for the exact same service, close to $1,000 a year. Some families saving more. Right now, you can make the switch. It only takes a few minutes of your time. Just dial pound 250 on your cell. Say the keyword save now, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month. Money in your pocket for the exact same service. Pound 250, keyword save now from Pure Talk.
Sean Hannity.
All right, when we come back, Tiffany Smiley now dead even with Patty Murray. We'll check in the state of Washington next.